was nothing, was completely unknown. It's really amazing.
Interesting. Dr. Mohammadi, I want to ask you, because it's almost 2:10, if you think it's good a time to start, you can start your introduction and welcome session, and then we're going to start the workshop.
Okay, thank you. Again, hello everyone. My pleasure is to be with you in this webinar titled Cultural Diplomacy and the Economics of the Arts. I would like to thank and appreciate all the respected professors and experts who have participated in this webinar and will present their insights and their viewpoints regarding the issue of the webinar. I especially appreciate Professor Doost Mohammadian for his contribution of this webinar. Really, he is leading this webinar, so I make only introduction. Everybody knows that culture has a direct impact on all areas of human life, all aspects of human life, including economics, industry, trade, communication, and all other, many other fields. Everybody knows that as I told you, the culture has many effects on the human lives. In some way, culture shapes and directs all aspects of individual and social life. As a sub-branches of culture, art also plays a major role in this process. In many countries, in particular in developing countries, culture and art depend on government budgets and financial support of government. It is impossible for the wider art community to produce and present art or culture without this kind of support. It is the goal of this webinar to compare and contrast the various ways and mechanisms that are available in different countries so that we can exchange ideas and experiences in different ways that the different experiences that there are in different countries also, to find the most appropriate methods for strengthening the arts industry economically. A way to make art independent of government funding. It is very difficult, but at least we can talk about it and we can find some ways. Once again, I thank all of you, dear guests and speakers, and I look forward to hearing from you, Professor Dr. Doost Mohammadian. The stage is with you, and so I'm ready to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammadi in Berlin. I know now Berlin is also cold, but we are all warm and try to make a good, positive workshop today together and exchange and share our knowledge together. And that would be very interesting because this is really practical. That means know-how and do-how, combination of know-how and do-how. Thank you again. And also, again, I would like to take this opportunity and say thank you, all respected speakers, because of your time, because these days is at the end of the year, and I know everybody is busy because of Christmas holiday and New Year and etc. But happy to have you all here today, and I hope we can do in the new year more workshops, more productive webinars, conferences together. I'm going to start to introduce the speakers, and then I would like to ask each speaker before starting the speech, 1 minute introduce yourself and then start your speech in 10 minutes. Dr. Mohammadi was the cultural consultant in Berlin. And the first speaker is me, Hamid Mohammadian. I'm a professor for sustainability in Germany. And I'm doing research regarding cultural sustainability, cultural differences, and the impact of culture in different aspects of our life. And the second speaker is Professor Dr. Dario Assante from University of Telematic in Rome, Italy. The next speaker is Mr. Huib Wursten from Netherlands, who is associate partner of Kulturinstituut in Netherlands, which is very famous in the field of cultural differences. The research of Professor Hoestede. If you are doing research in the field of culture, normally everybody knows him. Next speaker is Mrs. Dr. Yanki Hartijasti from Indonesia, from University of Indonesia in Indonesia. As she said, now is evening there. Next one is Professor Dr. Tetiana Paientko from University of Kiev in Ukraine. But unfortunately, she wrote me a message in the morning. Yesterday, she got test, and because of a positive test in COVID-19, she could not attend to the webinar. The next speaker is Mrs. Alexandra Halchenko. I hope the pronunciation is right, from Istanbul University in
that's totally correct. Yeah.
In Turkey, who is a senior lecturer in the field of language. And next speaker is Mrs. Diana Yatsishin from British University of Dubai, but she's still has problem to enter to the room. I don't know how we can solve this problem for her. Next speaker is Mr. Ricardo Tavio from Santa Cruz, Canary Island, Spain. But also he wrote me yesterday because of positive COVID-19 test. He could not attend to the webinar, and I hope he is going to get healthy soon and have a good holiday with his family. And the last speaker is Mr. Raffael Sheffield from who is a business data analyst in the USA. And I would like to ask each speaker, please, 1 minute, at first 1 minute introduce yourself, and then 10 minutes your speech. Now, I'm going to start my presentation. I'm sharing my file at first with you, and then start my presentation. Can you see my screen now? Is it possible to see my screen now?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, comparative study on cultural diplomacy and the artistic industries economics based on the model 7 pillars of sustainability. Today is 21st of December and almost 2:15 German time. And I am from University of Applied Sciences in Germany and Center of Sustainable Governance. As you know, I am theoretician of the fifth wave or tomorrow age theory, which is a theory regarding future concern. And we already has established a conference in London regarding this theory. And that was a successful conference, and we had something like 3 months weekly webinars with different professors and experts in different countries. For example, in the field of politics, with Professor Dice in German Parliament, in the field of culture with Mr. Wursten in Netherlands, in the field of economy, in the field of social with Professor Kanes Raja in London, in the field of environmental responsibility with Professor Stefan Lofal in Copenhagen Business School, in Denmark, about educational sustainability with Professor Karsten Duman in Germany, and in sustainability in general with Professor Dr. Volker Wittberg in Germany. The result of my research about culture, I had some sustainability indicators like cultural sustainability, which scored 2,7 from 1 to 4. 7PS infrastructure and development, 3,5. I will explain you what is 7PS model. Data and information with a focus on 7PS condition, 3,0. information security and cultural diplomacy for influencing imagination, D3 revolution, decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization 3,9, and political sustainability, social capital, and HR competencies and technologies 3,3. According to 2030 agenda of sustainable development, we have 3 principles: human rights, sustainability, and equality. When we say human rights, is about cultural rights, and we have 3+1 dimensions: social, environmental, economic, plus peace. This project was one of the biggest social projects in United Nations, which was questioning about more than 7 million people in 3 years with 80 questions. Also, we have another model for sustainability. We say sustainability is livability plus quality of life. And when we can improve livability plus quality of life, then we have high sustainability. Then culture has a very important role in this case to make a place, a culture, a country livable, and then we can go to next step, quality of life. I have a model, which is the model we are going to make our workshop today based on this model is 7 pillars of sustainability, because according to United Nations, we had 3 pillars: social, cultural, social, environmental, and economy. But in my model, I have 4 more factors. The social, environment, economy we had already, technique, culture, education, and politics. That's why today I have invited different researchers, professors, and experts from different, fields of technique, politics, social, culture, and environment. We did one research before Corona in one company, and then also during Corona. You can see before Corona, that blue in the spider diagram, that blue shape can show you the situation was more harmonized and sustainable. After that, during Corona, because of so many risks we had to face, that's why the diagram is not harmonized and also low sustainable. According to this model, we can combine 7 pillars of sustainability plus livability and quality of life. Then the methodology to calculate sustainability is for each effective sustainability, we can say sigma probability of each factor times impact of each factor times ratio or weight after normalization. As I said, the 5th wave tomorrow age theory, or theory of comprehensive everything, was a theory and also related theories, models, and concepts regarding sustainability with a focus on culture. This is the overview of this theory. You can see we have started since 70,000 years ago, and then 10,000 years ago, and then 500 years ago, 300 years ago, 70,000 years ago, we had the cognition revolution. Then 10,000 years ago, agricultural revolution, scientific revolution was 500 years ago. During this revolution, we had 300 years ago, industrial revolution. 100 years ago, we had the first business and economic revolution. And after 2020, we had the second business and economic revolution. That's why we need to know culture is like a foundation for economy and also the other factors of 7 P's model. The 5th wave theory is combination of future of industry 4.0, which called industry 5 as a symbol of West, and future of society 5.0 called society 6, symbol of non-West. And this is introduced to support all businesses, especially small, medium-sized enterprises, to forecast, prevent, and face today's challenges and tomorrow's crisis. That's why this is really important for us to know so many artistic and cultural activities or industries, economic, they are really related and based on culture and cultural activities, and also cultural diplomacy. We can conclude this theory and to say business cultural economy is transferring from a traditional to innovative data and blue-green sustainable business cultural economy. In this model, I have to show you, we call it this model 3D, a small medium-sized enterprise with a focus on social, eco, environment. That means social, economic, and environment, 3 factors. If you look at this model, you can see the surface with 2 indexes, social and environment, is first priority, which I call it environmental responsibility. The second one is the surface of indexes social and economy, which call it social cohesion. And the last one is economy and environment, which is economic efficiency. That's why if the businesses, they want to get success, they need to know, they need to follow 2 points. Number one, they need to follow 7 pillars of sustainability model. Sorry. And then they need to know how they can prioritize this. First of all, foundation is culture. Then first priority is environmental responsibility to make the life livable. And then social cohesion and social system to make a good social system. And the last one is economic efficiency. Then we had culture as foundation, environmental responsibility first priority, social cohesion, and economic efficiency. Then how about 3 more? We need, during this time parallel, we need proper technique and or technology, and we need to have proper education, competencies, training, and qualification. And also we need to have politicians to make regulation and law to support all these activities and cultural and artistic economy. This is the model. You can see there are 3 matrices, and you can use mathematics to calculate these activities. First priority, environmental responsibility. Second, social cohesion, and the last one, economic efficiency. Also, we have another topic, another concept in this theory called hybrid small medium-sized enterprise, or a small medium-sized enterprise 5.0, which is about tomorrow's business. In this case, we say we should not just focus on economy and business, we should also focus on corporate social responsibility, environmental friendly, energy and resource saving, and future planning. Then we can conclude this concept to say, based on 3D socio-eco-environment SME I showed you in last slides, environmental responsibility is first priority, social cohesion second, economic efficiency. And then they need to be also digital and smart. They need to know large, small, medium-sized enterprises. When we have more than 250 to 500 member of staff, they have more chance to get more opportunities. They need to be innovative. Industry and industry-related services, especially on artistic and culture. A small, medium-sized enterprises culture, and also digital culture, because now you can see, for example, this webinar without IoT-based platform was not possible to make it. Then digital culture is also one point. They need to be sustainable with focus on 7 pillars of sustainability plus livability and quality of. They need to be blue, green, and clean economy, environmental responsibility. They focus to future planning, CSR 1.0, CSR 2.0, and CSE, corporate social responsibility, corporate social sustainability and responsibility. They need to focus on human resource, talent, competencies, qualification, skills, and training. They need to make a succession planning and focus on Internet of Business, which is IoT in business. And at the end, focus on D3 revolution, digitalization, decarbonization, and decentralization. This is the same point in the model. Then, in this 7PS model, culture is base, is foundation. Then we have environmental responsibility, and then social cohesion and economic efficiency. Then, as I said, proper education, proper techniques, and politicians to support us with law and regulation. Then you can see all factors they can influence each other. Then, cultural points are behind sustainability in this model. The SMEs are social oriented, internally and externally. That's why the experts, the managers, the CEOs, the institution, the companies, professors, they need to make a balance between internal and external perspectives. Then some of these pillars, they are foundation, as I said, culture, politics, education, social. We can have very good situation, technique, but without enough cultural background and education, it is not possible, for example. There is a theory, I call it Doost cultural theory, which is about cultural adaptation. If you want to make a business or economy-based business according to artistic or cultural activities, then we need to make 3 indexes: know-how, do-how, cultural differences, and cultural adaptation. And then we can put the different researchers' results from different people like Professor Horsted about cultural differences and national conflict in different cultures. And in knowledge, we have language, visible culture, invisible culture. And in cultural adaptation, we have 7 pillars: factors: social, environment, culture, economy, education, technique, competencies, and we have also digital culture transformation, legal, intercultural transformation, and we have predisposition and cross-cultural shock. According to this model, with using, analyzing the data, with using multiple regression, we can calculate cultural adaptation and give a solution. According to the fifth wave theory, we have age of tomorrow from 2020 to 2030. Mr. Matthias Horst, in a book called Die Zukunft nach Corona, or the world after Corona, talk about the situation after Corona. And he said, after Corona, first of all, Corona will not end. We're never back to normal, and we are in the historical period of time. We call it deep crisis, and this is the situation we are at the moment in this situation. And that's actually right. That's why if we want to go to this kind of business with the focus on culture, art, we need to have a special plan and a special comprehensive view. Also, the former CEO of Mercedes-Benz in 2017 tried to forecast the future. And he said, in the future, in the near future, that means 3 years before Corona, he said in the near future, the main competitors of Mercedes-Benz company are not the car companies. They are mobile app systems. For example, today, Uber is one app, is one company, online-based business, is biggest car renting company of the world without having any car. Or Airbnb is the biggest accommodation renting company of the world without having any accommodation. That shows in the near future how digital background and digitalization and IoT-based business can, make a role in the near future in the second business economic revolution. According to my research, I had 12 results during Corona and the world after Corona. The world will change, behavior will change, humanity will return. The economy after the contagion is still breathing and alive. The authority and power of most technological companies like today Zoom or Skype or the other platform we use, contagion and outbreak of COVID-19 and reconciliation of technologies, privacy risk because of more than 80% of companies, they are moving their business online. Then there are the data security problem, and also health risk because of staying at home and doing home office and maybe eat more than before and not having physical activities. Intensification of domestic economic shift, strengthening bonds between people because of understanding the value already existed. The provision of health and medical care is evolving. Medical doctors, nurses, pharmacists, they are in the front line. The submission of world trade and to regain the opportunity for living in a better way and prosper the economy. I would like to ask the respected speakers and attendees, please turn off the microphone because there are some noise and I can lose my concentration. Thank you. Here I'm showing you the tomorrow's crisis based off the fifth wave theory, which we need to prepare ourselves for this. The first wave was the risk of contagion COVID-19. The second can be some other biological attack. And then we are going to face after 2020 to a big economic shift and recession and inflation. After that, crisis by social problems is also one point. We have also in near future high greenhouse gas emission and climate pollution. We already started this problem in some countries, but in near future, maybe after 2023, we are going to have more challenge about this case. Crisis caused by climate change is next one. Technological problems, because as you see how technology is going to improve and grow, then if we cannot control the technologies to not be out of control, then the robots, for example, they can dominate us, then we can have a big problem in the near situation. And the last one, if we cannot make this situation livable regarding the environmental responsibility, we are going to face with biodiversity collapse. There is a theory. In this theory, we have 3 indexes, how sustainability with different factors with the base culture can influence comprehensive strategic plan with a focus on project management, infrastructure, and value engineering, and impact on digital life, wealth, and sustainability. Now I'm going to conclude my speech. First of all, we need to do thinking globally and acting regionally, because in this workshop we want to compare, in different cultures. And then we need to know culture is not separate and isolated or independent issue. When we talk about culture, we need to talk about the other 6 factors. They, according to 7PS model, they can influence culture, and culture can influence them as foundation. Pay attention to important indicators which are the foundation of or infrastructure of culture. Culture, as we know, is not just the thing we can see. We have visible culture, which is 30%, language and food and etc. But invisible culture is 70% of iceberg of culture. That's why we need to also think about this. Comparative study of cultural issues, as we make today, for example, this workshop. Pay attention to infrastructure related to subject, culture, and artistic activities and tourism for in growing the economy. 7 pillars of sustainability model with a focus on culture. Pay attention to the 3 revolution, decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization, and development of cultural activities, policies with a comprehensive view. And also we need to know countries like Germany and some of the modern or developed countries, they put more than 50% of budget regarding to topic culture to Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do comparative study and communicate with the other cultures. Here, I'm going to tell you, according to 7PS know-how, do-how, sustainable resources planning, we are going to have cooperative partnership with governments, comprehensive strategic planner, resource managers, and LNG experts, process facilitators, politicians, universities, researchers, and academic people, small, medium-sized enterprises and institutions, communities, cities, and societies. Then I'm going to finalize my speech with focus on blue-green sustainable energy, infrastructure, cross-validation, business marketing and technological innovation, blue-green sustainable mobility, wastewater and waste, blue-green sustainable economy, health, labor, and social welfare security. Thank you so much for your attention. I think because of lack of time, we can do the discussion and question answer at the end of this workshop. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Assante to start his speech. Professor Assante, please start.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Professor Doost, for the invitation. I'm Dario Assante. I'm Professor of Electrical Engineering at the Faculty of Engineering at University in Rome. I'm not an expert of cultural diplomacy, so I will not speak about cultural diplomacy. My field of expertise is digital transformation. So I will discuss about digital transformation and artistic industries.
Professor Assante, as I said, culture is not an individual topic. That's why when we talk about culture, the impact of culture in technology and technology on culture is also one point. That's why we have invited you to have a speech about digital transformation.
Thanks a lot. So, Art 4.0, when digital transformation meets artistic industries. Okay. In this period, in the last years, we hear a lot about speaking about digital transformation, but usually when we use the word digital transformation, usually is connected to Industry 4.0, the 9 pillars of Industry 4.0. So our first idea is technology. However, if we look around, we discover that now digital transformation affects every sector, from agriculture to energy, from smart cities to transportation. Digital transformation is going to affect also art. It may sound quite strange because the artistic industries, I don't want to say that are a closed world, but are a particular sector that may not be related to digital transformation at the beginning, but I will show some example on how new digital technologies can use it to create new business opportunities, new services, a new way to interact with arts. A first example is very easy and it's quite popular. And is going to appear in several museums, is the example of smart display cases. Smart display cases look exactly like traditional display cases. So they are spaces where you can put pieces of art. However, they are IoT-based. Just making these display cases IoT-based, it means that you can turn them into an interactive device and create a new interactive experience between the piece of art and the customer. First of all, you can create, the easiest application is to create some hotspots where the visitor comes near to the case and get digital information about what he's saying. So not just a small text that we usually see near the piece of art, but we can browse and read the history or many more information about the piece of art. But if it's used in a wiser way, so it's integrated with machine learning and big data algorithms, it can be also used to modify the visiting experience of the users. Because of course, from IoT devices being bidirectional, you can also get information about the visitor, and then you can try to understand his preferences, his interests, and create customized visit paths. So you can move the visitors in different directions according to their interests. And this is a very easy but interesting enhancement of the visiting experience. If you want to do more, you can consider the use of additive manufacturing into musealization. 3D printing nowadays allows to create perfect copies of masterpieces and everything you want. In the picture here, you can see a 3D printed copy of the Michelangelo David, that is one of the most famous Italian statues, that is in Florence. Of course, it cannot be moved, but it has been fully replicated in real size and exposed in the expo in Dubai. So additive manufacturing nowadays allows to make replication of masterpieces that cannot be moved, that cannot be transported, to offer to other people in different parts of the world to have the opportunity to feel like in front of the real piece of art. But additive manufacturing is also a solution for creating new ways of art. First of all, allow to the artist to quickly create, make a benchmark of what is going to create. But also there are new artistic sector that are growing following the growth of digital manufacturers. For example, the 3D printed based jewelry or 3D printed based sculpture are new ways of making art that are growing thanks to such technology. Augmented reality is not so popular, but is going to take greater interest thanks to the advent of new visual technologies. With augmented reality, basically, you can add digital information to a visual experience. So you see something, you can add any kind of digital information. It can be information about what you're seeing. It's usually interacts with maps. But for example, a very interesting application is with a heritage site, where you can have a 3D model associated to the heritage site. And so you can offer to the customer a new kind of visit, because at the same time, the visitor can see how the heritage site is now, but also how it was originally. Moving further, you are virtual reality. With virtual reality, you don't add anything to the real experience, because the real experience does not exist. You don't have a masterpiece and you are adding digital information. With virtual reality, everything, as the word say, is virtual. So the visitor is immersed in a digitally designed environment where you can put whatever you want. And it's going to be to become quite popular to create virtual galleries and virtual exhibition, because in this way, at first you can share and use masterpieces that are to be transported or cannot be always moved all around the world, but also with this virtual gallery, virtual exposition, you can add sensation for the visitors. So you can add colors, you can add atmosphere. Here there was an exposition about Van Gogh. So you had the painting of the room of Van Gogh, and then on the other side you can enter in, of course, virtual Van Gogh room, and so feel as Van Gogh was when he painted the masterpiece. So this is not an enrichment of the visiting experience. It's a fully different visiting experience. So it's a fully different opportunity for the exhibitor, for the artistic industry. So it's something completely new that is possible thanks to the digital technologies. If we want to move further, we have digital galleries. With digital galleries, we also remove the concept of space. So everything is online. We have online collection of digital documents that can represent paintings, statues, any object of art. And in such a way, it's the best way, or a great way at least, to document, distribute, preserve, and store, and sometimes restore also pictures, because you can get in the cloud a gallery with hundreds of pieces of art that can be shared and distributed, also creating a new way of teaching. The Google Art and Culture project now is cooperates with more than 2,000 museums. So you have the masterpiece, you have the pieces of art of all these museums that are digitized inside the Google Arts and Culture project, and you can explore. So you can decide, today I will go to Prado, tomorrow I will go to Louvre. It's a new way of exploring museums, but also teaching art. Blockchain is a technology that is not only connected to the way of using art, but can do a lot in the for artistic industries. Art is the second largest unregulated market worldwide. And this is not so good if you consider that the first one is the market of illicit drugs. This is because of untrusted transaction to uncontrolled sell and buy of art, to irregular not or piece of art. Blockchain basically is a technology that can be used in a lot of applications, from cryptocurrency to food to smart contracts. And it's a technology that allows you to make a transparent and clearly tracked operation. So if you want to add transparency to a market, blockchain is an efficient solution. So using there is a huge potential of the use of blockchain in art in order to add transparency and help to better regulate the market. It simplifies the transaction, increase the transparency of the transaction, increase the trust towards the piece of art, because allows you to create secured and not modified all databases. So increase the trust, increase the security, and allow to share immutable data. Big data can be used in industrial artistic industries in order to facilitate and boost the supply chain. The supply chain in the artistic sector is a complex process because pieces of art in the market are scarce. Imagine that you want to buy a painting from Picasso. It's not like going to buy a car or to go to the supermarket. So you have to find who is able to sell you what you want, or if you want to sell something, you have to find somebody that is interested to buy what you are selling. And in several cases, the matching between the buyer and the seller is not so easy because, as I said, there are few pieces of art in the market, and so it's a very restricted community. Big data analysis can speed up a lot this process because analyzing the data and extracting information from the data, it's possible to extract information about the trends of the market, on the interest of the buyers, and on the, and so this will facilitate also the artist to put on the market some piece of art that are more requested, and so this would speed up the supply chain. I would like to conclude with this simple example that is quite surprising. This is Edmond de Bellamy. I don't know if you have ever seen this picture that has become quite very popular in the last year, but for a reason that maybe you don't imagine. Edmond de Bellamy has been looked like an old painting, and the idea was to make it like an old painting, but had been realized in 2018 by the art collective Obvious, that is a collective work of people working in Paris. The particular aspect of this painting, of the collective, is that none of the participants to the Obvious collectives was a painter. There were an engineer, a physician, and a programmer. So the question is, who painted this painting? Well, this painting is famous because it is the first portrait released by an artificial intelligence. The Obvious Collective designed the software that was able to realize paintings. The artificial intelligence get information about 15,000 paintings on portraits realized in the history of humanity, and then using artificial intelligence algorithms created its own portrait. That is the first portrait realized not by a human, but by an artificial intelligence. A question would be if this is art or not, because basically it's just a painting designed by a computer and printed with a traditional printer. However, the Obvious Collective decided to sell it, went to the famous auction Christie's to try to sell it, and Christie evaluated it as $10,000. But at the end of the auction, it has been sold for $430,000. So I don't know if it is art or not, but as I said, I'm an engineer, so I'm not interested to decide if it is art or not, but for sure I can say it is business. And so I hope with my presentation to have given the idea that new technologies that are changing the scenarios of several sectors are bringing new competencies, new business models, new opportunities also in industrial artistic industries. Paying attention that all the technologies, all the applications that I've shown in my presentation can be implemented using competencies that does not belong to artists, but belong to engineers, programmers, so to people that 10 years ago did not work directly in the artistic industries, and now is going to have an important role. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Professor Dario Assante from Italy. Because of your presentation, I felt I'm in Italy now because you showed us some galleries and museum. That was interesting. Yes, that was very interesting topic, and I think at the end we can do discussion together about your topic. And now I would like to ask the next respected speaker, Mr. Huib Wursten from Netherlands. Mr. Wursten, please start to introduce yourself in 1 minute and then 10 minutes your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me, first of all. There is something quite interesting if you look at the discussions up till now. I mean, if I look at what is going on, I like to start with some ideas about what is happening in the world. I mean, I'm thinking about what people see happening in the world in terms of processes. First of all, my background is in culture. I'm a culture expert. I'm helping companies and organizations worldwide in aligning their personnel, if they are coming from different cultures. And I can tell you what I discovered together, and I'm basing myself on the research of Mr. Hofstede, of course, is that culture is having a gravitational influence on all the other aspects we are discussing here. Culture is really about the basic values that are driving behavior. Now, if you look at what is happening, there are 3 phases I like to point out. First of all, there was Fukuyama. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and communism, Fukuyama said, well, this is the end of history. because we are now all developing into a Western liberal democracy kind of attitude and focus. Well, of course, later, somewhat later, there was somebody you all know of, I mean, Mr. Huntington, who said, no, that's not true, because at this moment in time, we see that as a clash of civilizations going on. And in his mind, if he talked about civilizations, he was talking about religion and religious attitudes. He said, well, people's religious and identities will be the primary source of conflict in the post-Cold War world. But you know, the last few years, this is also well seen in a way. It's not so much a clash of civilizations, but a clash of clans and identities. And culture is in the core. A few speakers already talked and referred to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Well, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is leading to all kinds of individuals and minority groups who are vying to be seen as equal to all other groups and try to be recognized by others. And that means that at the moment there is really a fragmentation going on. And well, the key issue in terms of the fragmenting world at the moment is that, well, you have to define, well, what is truth? Truth is in the core of the competences at the moment. If you look at the worldwide well, the conflicts and polarization, and truth is not at all unified kind of concept. There are different people with different truth, and sometimes if somebody is saying something else, the one at the other side is not completely, you know, wrong because of his point of view. Well, this all started for me in 2008 at a conference in Denver. In Denver, in that time, I was in a minibus from my hotel, you know, to the convention hall, where at that moment Barack Obama was to be officially announced as the Democratic presidential candidate. I was invited as a speaker in one of the side conferences. In the minibus, there were 3 white women, and they said to the 4 men in the bus, myself being white, but also 3 African-American guys, and they said to us, well, you men can never understand how sad we are that Hillary Clinton has not been chosen as Democratic presidential candidate. And to be honest, I needed some minutes to reflect on what they were saying. And then suddenly I was made aware, this is really strange if they're saying that, because if you are saying that somebody else is not able to understand your feelings, you're saying that this is what we do, that you can never understand, let go, appreciate literature, movies, music, paintings, and dance from other cultures. And I think it is true that it is a human faculty that we are able to empathize with others. And because of the empathy, we can understand, appreciate perceptions, perspectives, and points of view and art of other cultures. It's not impossible. Even if you don't agree, you still can empathize. And it's safe to say so because we are really able to do music from completely other parts of the world. I remember, you know, being in Indonesia and gamelan music. Gamelan is really, completely different compared to what we are used to, but I could very much appreciate what kind of, art. I can appreciate the art and the poets from Iran because, you know, I can empathize with their ideas. And in this sense, we can, really understand people and art of very remote districts and completely different districts from where we were raised. Empathy, in terms of psychology and in terms of physiology, is based in the brains. In our brains, there have been found so-called mirror neurons, meaning that scientists shown that the same brain regions light up when you watch somebody happening to somebody else, and they are experiencing more or less the same as if looking at what somebody else is happening is suffering to, you can indeed empathize with that. And in this sense, we can appreciate art, even if the art is from old and ancient times, from Africa or from Greece and from Asia, in terms of the masks people are making in that time. We can appreciate the emotions that are going with it. And in this sense, we can also appreciate being non-German to understand the meaning and the importance of the word Ordnung, order, in the German culture. I found this exhibition in Germany, Schönheit ruht in die Ordnung. That would be very strange to say that, for instance, in my country, in the Netherlands, that order is in beauty or beauty is in order. That's really strange. Well, the limits and the possibilities of this empathy were in the core of two separate recent discussions in the movie world. And I'd like to point that out, so I'll be very short in this sense. The first discussion was about, the choice of an American, Ron Howard, as the director of a film about the Chinese classical pianist Lang Lang. This guy, who was criticizing Lu Wang, said, "I just don't think that our artists to grapple with the cultural specificities of northeastern China, where Lang Lang, and he said, my family are from, or with the cultural aspect of the physical violence in his upbringing." Lang himself, however, the artist himself disagreed and was referring to a universal human experience and said, dream big, work hard, and always believe in yourself. This movie, thanks to Ron Howard's, the American's vision, it will inspire young people around the world to follow their dreams and never forget they are one in a million. It became also important, this way of thinking and this discussion last year in the Oscar that was really then won by a very, very non-American lady, Chloe Zhao, and she made a film, and that film won the Oscar, in terms of Nomadland. And Nomadland was portraying the life of a lady who leaves her hometown in the USA after her husband dies, and the company she was working for closes down. And she was moving, all around, in the United States, in a mobile van and so on. Nadia Grill, she's a critic and award-winning producer and co-founder of Encompass Films, said, well, some abilities are hidden from plain view. They are in the heart and in the mind. If we wish to create a rich environment for storytelling that enhances our understanding of communities that are not our own, it would be wise to care more about filmmakers' character than their identity. Well, summarizing, if you look at art, well, it is really important to understand that art can really bridge the differences, cultural differences worldwide. And by empathizing, we can understand a little bit how we are thinking and how we are perceiving the world, and we can indeed also be in each other's shoes. And I think in this divided world, in this fragmented world, I think that is the secret of coming together. And I end up also in terms of art. There was this lady who, during the inauguration of the latest American president, Mr. Biden, who was asked to read a poem, and she was asking for a broader sense of identity. And I think the key and secret of broader identities is understanding that empathy can really be a bridge between different points of view. Well, thank you. And I hope you will discuss that a little bit further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wursten, because of your interesting topic and because of your researches, as you said, more than 85 countries traveling and communicating with different cultures and having discovery on people, observation, cultures, everything. Thank you so much. At the end of the workshop, we are going to discuss some points regarding to your presentation. Now, I would like to invite the next respected speaker, Dr. Yanki Hartijasti from Indonesian University in Indonesia, to start to introduce herself in 1 minute and then 10 minutes presentation. Dr. Hartijasti, please start.
Thank you. So, I'm going to share my Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everywhere. So let me introduce myself, my background. So I graduated from the Philippines. Yeah, I took my undergrad and my MBA in the Philippines from Marinol and also University of the Philippines. And then I took another master degree and doctorate in University of Indonesia in industrial and organizational psychology. Then I also had an experience as a practitioner. So I was a marketing account officer in the banks, and my last profession is sub-branch manager in a private bank. And then after that, I switched to HRD as a trainer, and also the end is HR division head in several private companies. Then after 15 years of my experience as practitioner, I switched to academician. So I became a lecturer in master program in this is a private university graduate school. Yeah, as a part-time I took there, and then now I'm full-time in Faculty of Economics and Business at University of Indonesia. Yeah, since 2004. Then I also is a visiting professor and keynote speaker from university in Asia and Europe. And oops, wait a minute, I have to put my.
I think something happened to her laptop. Okay, in this time, I would like to take this opportunity to say again, hello everybody and good day, because of morning, evening, afternoon, and say hello to Raffael Sheffield in USA. That was a nice time we had in Berlin some years ago, Raffael, but you can see that was so fast.
Yeah, yes, it was. I guess the program was only a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah, that was in 2016 or 17, I think.
Yeah, started in 2016 and graduated in 2018. Yeah, so it was a very nice experience. I really liked it. How was everything in Berlin?
In Berlin, everything is fine and cold, and Corona is also there with us. We already accepted Corona.
Yeah, we haven't really accepted it yet. I guess in California, we are a bit ahead of the curve, but the rest of the country is not yet.
How is the weather there?
Weather in California is pretty nice. It's a little bit colder than usual, but compared to like Michigan, where I'm from, or Berlin, it's quite warm. Maybe about, I'm guessing 20 degrees Celsius. I'm so used to Fahrenheit now, I can't think of in Celsius anymore.
Okay, Dr. Hartijasti is there.
So sorry. My battery is off. I forgot to put. Okay, so I have to share again.
We make this kind of workshop and webinars, Dr. Hartijasti, to make recharge all people's battery, you know.
Yes. So I was already in my the last part of my introduction. Yeah. So I'm also a visiting professor and keynote speaker in the university in Asia and Europe. My topic is about leadership, organizational culture, digital behavior among multi-generational employees, HRM in Asia, and also sustainable tourism. So that's my short background. So I'm going to talk about sustainable and healthy workplace beyond the pandemic based on 7 pillars of sustainability model of Professor Doost. So once again, I'm Yanki Hartijasti from University of Indonesia. Okay, so McKinsey 2020 has said about the future of work in Asia after the pandemic They said that because of COVID-19, it has led to 3 trends. The first one is the rise of remote work, the growth in the e-commerce market or digital channel, then the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence. So what are they? So I'm going to tell you one by one. So remote work in Asia. So, but we have to know first what is working in Asia. So this one also from McKinsey, yeah. So the definition of working in Asia is that employee must sit in front of the manager. So when the managers are far away, they don't really know what employee is doing. So it's very difficult to make sure employee is actually working or not, especially when employees don't fully understand the task objective and clear about what is expected. And we know from Hofstede that most Asian countries have collectivist culture. So personal relation comes before task. And we also are high power distant. So staff's expectation is tell me what to do, yeah, versus being involved in decision making. In Indonesia especially, we have low uncertainty avoidance. Yeah, so we have lack of preventive actions. So work hard is situation forced to. Punctual need to be learned. That's why we need clear key performance indicator and strict enforcement of rules and regulation. And McKinsey also differentiate 2 kinds of companies after pandemic. The first one is embrace remote work, where they want to have more flexible working, embrace the change, and optimize the situation. The second one is reverting to the old ways. So this company, they don't want to take the advantage of potential changes. While Bloomberg 2021 as well differentiate between Western and Asian countries. So in Western companies in Asia, usually they are aligned with their global headquarters. So they're still adopting work from home. And more than 60% staff to desk sharing ratio will increase over the coming couple of years. While the Asian companies, they are relatively traditional and conservative. So they prefer dedicated seats for their staff rather than sharing. So most of them don't intend to adopt hybrid working. How about the digital channel or the automation? So the digital channels, it's the growth of the digital channels growth was 2 to 5 times before pandemic. So what we are doing is shopping, food delivery, grocery delivery, telemedicine, remote learning, etc. So there are a shift of jobs and demand for labor, and also shift from in-person customer interaction to more delivery-based jobs. So we also now in the cashless economy, there are many new startups taking advantage of these data flows. The automation and artificial intelligence in Asia. So business were forced to embrace automation because how do I keep the plant open but manage with less workforce density? That's why they want to have this automation. So the automation adoption rised very rapidly. So it was able to capture efficiencies, stabilize cost base, respond to the new economics realities post-recession. So this pandemic is tough, of course, but through technology like Zoom, Google Meet, the MS Team, etc., people are a lot more connected with people around the world, like what we are having now. And then we also have many more conversations. So there are a lot of human connections around the world. However, we are also facing tougher future. So people work longer. Traditional career models may soon be gone, and many new roles and job titles will emerge. So therefore, we need to upskilling and reskilling employees to meet more challenging occupation and giving them the skills needed to implement a sustainable and healthy workplace. What is this sustainable and healthy workplace? So first of all, I would like to tell you what is sustainability. So sustainability has the power to unite employees to create work culture and work-life balance. It has a great impact on customers and the world. It also helps to reduce overheads of a business, improves the health of employees, attracts customers who are looking to do business with eco-friendly brands. It also boosts the overall revenue and reputation of the organization. So what are the advantages of sustainable, healthy workplace then? So it results in a stress-free, happier, and motivated employees. Wait a minute. Sorry. It enhances employees' wellness and productivity, lessen work-related illnesses and accidents. So if, sorry, I want to also share with you the 7 pillars of sustainability model from Professor Doost. Yeah. So there are 7 pillars. The first one is educational, political, social, environmental, economics, technical, and cultural sustainability. So these 7 pillars are vital to gain high sustainability. Instead of the 3 traditional pillars, like the environmental, economic, and social. So this pillar also must be developed almost equally. So based on this, I'm proposing to make a sustainable and healthy workplace based on these 7. Let us see what I have done. So how to create sustainable and healthy workplace based on the 7 P's model. So first one is economic. So making sure business operations don't create sustainability issues that would harm the long-term success of the company. So for example, they can do implementing hybrid working, eco-friendly workplace, etc. In terms of technical sustainability, HR systems that enable employees to drive sustainability. For example, measuring employees' key performance indicator on energy consumption, carbon footprint, waste reduction rate, water footprint, etc. In terms of political sustainability, so it's a good corporate governance is used to produce sustainable long-term economic value for shareholders and stakeholders. For example, being transparent about sustainability efforts by providing clear information on company website. Educational sustainability, continuous learning to develop knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values for employees to act in a more sustainable patterns of living. Example, Coca-Cola's Do One Thing campaign. So it is an internal program used to educate employees to share one thing they would do. for Sustainability on Earth Day. Social sustainability. So promote well-being by understanding what people need, for example, managing and identifying business impacts on employees, workers in the value chains, customers, and local communities in terms of safer working conditions, living wages, and job security, and sustainable products. How about environmental sustainability? It's a workplace practices that are not harmful to the environment. For example, monthly competition to reduce fuel emission on daily commute by taking transport that uses less fuel will result in the accumulation of fewer points per team. For example, cycling or walking will get 0. So that means very good. Yeah. Public transport will get 1. Carpooling 2. And personal car 3. That's the worst. Yeah. So those who get the lower point will win. Last but not the least, cultural sustainability. Since senior manager is the top management, so they must walk the talk, yeah, as the role model of the company. So they play a fundamental role in showing everyone the importance sustainability plays to the company. For example, in the implementation of bring your own mug habit for plastic bottle reduction. So hopefully this is representing what is the concept of the Professor Doost. So I also need your feedback of this paper. Was it PPT? Yeah. Okay. So for my conclusion, so sustainability is treating ourselves and our environment as if we are to live on this earth forever. Aaron Wood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hartijasti, because of your presentation. That was very, very interesting. And we will do discussion at the end of the workshop. Now I would like to introduce and invite the next respected speaker, Mrs. Alexandra Paientko from Istanbul in Turkey. And I would like to invite you to start to introduce yourself in 1 minute and then 10 minutes presentation. At the end, we are going to invite the next speaker, Mr. Raffael Sheffield, the last speaker from USA. Thank you, please.
Also danke für Ihre Einladung, sehr geehrte Hamid Doost. And thanks to all of you for wonderful presentations. There is a lot of food for thought. So firstly, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a senior lecturer at Istanbul University. I have masters in Romano-Germanic philology and consider myself a linguist somehow. So as my field of expertise is foreign languages, I will be talking about English as a language of global economy. And I would like to talk a little bit about my recent research areas. Recently, I have made a research on online teaching, overcoming psychological barriers, online teaching as a black swan of education, and teacher training. I'm also a Cambridge accredited teacher trainer, and my recent research was on bonsai philosophy in teacher training, and currently I'm working on the book, The Implementation of Bonsai Philosophy into Teacher Training. So that's to make a long story short. And yeah, pertaining to economy and English as a lingua franca in economy, when we look at English and its global role, the economic dimension and not the identity aspect is what determines its value and status in the countries with aspirations to participate in the knowledge economy. While proficiency in English, whether as a first, second, or third language may provide an advantage for careers and employment in certain sectors of global economy, the number of available jobs and number of jobs being created that require significant knowledge of English is very, very small compared to the numbers of workers seeking jobs worldwide. While there are many factors that impact the labor markets, it's possible to look at the factors of the economy and investment patterns, and from the data, make informed judgments about the relative values of languages within identified employment sectors. We can also discern correlations between capital investments and relative presence of particular educational and linguistic resources globally. Even a cursory examination of one economic sector, the knowledge economy, reveals the ways in which knowledge of certain world, so to say, languages, and of course, especially English. We all probably know that English became the lingua franca during the treaty of the Second World War. Yeah. So firstly, French was the lingua franca of the 19th century, and then it was changed to English. And English provides a competitive advantage, but only if coupled with appropriate educational credentials, of course. However, before examining data on jobs, investment, and the role of lingua francas in knowledge economy employment, we should note that it would be wrong to conclude that what is being described here is simply the efficient operation of a self-equilibrating global market, in which, in classic market economic terms, price determines everything. No such markets exist and has probably never existed in a global context, despite claims made by neoliberal economists to the contrary. There are many ways in which decisions about the production, distribution, and crucially prices of goods and services are influenced and often controlled by the commerce of all types. Institutions with their ability to lend money determine interest rates on loans and terms of lending, often referred to as conditionally in the economics literature, are generally controlled by nations with the most wealth. And as a result, English, as we know, English is the language, is the official language of the nations with the most wealth. Yeah, and the agendas and policies of International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, for example, are determined largely by self-interested governments of the original G7 countries, which in turn are greatly influenced by the largest banks and corporations, of whom seek to maximize their self-interest when it comes to investment and trade policies. The jobs in low-income countries are disproportionately very low-wage jobs, for which only minimal competence of any, if any, in English is required. In those cases in which a high degree of English is required, for example, as with the call centers in India and elsewhere, educated workers who also happen to speak or can master a variety of English acceptable accents to American consumers will have an advantage over those who don't speak this variety of English. And for example, with the high level of literacy in English and educational attainment, of course, there are some advantages competing for knowledge economy jobs in the formal economy compared to a person with neither English literacy nor high level of education obtained from reputable university and usually English-speaking university. However, given the relatively small numbers of these jobs available globally and the relatively low numbers of persons who meet these minimal requirements, the bold claim that English is a means to social mobility, let alone necessary to promote global justice even in the long run, while not acknowledging and addressing the underlying dynamics of transnational capitalism, the role of high-income states in maintaining and benefiting by the current system, and the effects of unemployment and migration patterns that often work against the sustainable development of local economies, especially in low level countries, low income countries. They cannot be justified. Yeah, that's probably it. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for your very interesting presentation. That was a very good approach to look at business with the visible part of culture, language as a door or windows to go to a new culture. I remember when I was a child, I started to go to English language school when I was 5 years old, and then that was a sentence, over there for that language school, they wrote, a new language is a new life. And that's why that is really right. And today we can see how having expertise in different languages or knowledge in different cultures can help us to get success in different business and economic sector. Thank you so much. We are going to discuss with you at the end of the workshop. Now I would like to invite the last respected speaker, Mr. Raffael Sheffield, who was my friend and my master student some years ago in 2016-18 in Berlin, in Technical University of Berlin. Now he is a successful businessman in USA, and now he would like to start to talk about, at first introduce yourself in 1 minute and then 10-minute presentation. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So yes, my name is Raffael Sheffield. I'm from the USA. I guess a little background about me. I started my career off as an electrical engineer. I studied at the University of Michigan. I studied electrical engineering and German. And then I moved on into the manufacturing industry, where I was the production control specialist and also a data analyst. And like Professor Doost said, I completed my MBA. He was my academic advisor. I completed my MBA in building sustainability at the Technical University in Berlin. And now I currently work as a business data analyst for Excel Construction in Silicon Valley. What I would like to do today is maybe talk about data transformation in the construction industry, and maybe give you a use case of how we're using it in our company in our safety team. Okay, so some problems that we have in the construction industry in general is that many of our stakeholders don't really understand the data, the value of data. So when we talk about it, maybe our upper managers don't really understand that it's very important, that we need to focus on it. And I guess that's my role in my company to do that. Another issue that we have is trying to collect the data. A lot of our systems aren't integrated. They don't speak to each other, and we can't really gain insight, for example, for how absenteeism affects production or how absenteeism affects construction. We also have a cultural change aspect that's a problem as well. Construction is a very old industry, and a lot of the people are stuck in their ways, and it's very difficult to get people to change in that regard. Some ways that we try to fix this, like I said before, as a business analyst, business data analyst, and also in partnership with our leadership group, we're trying to come up with different ways of how to approach this, trying to explain to our different stakeholders why it's important to focus on data, what the benefits, the financial benefits are, what the procedural benefits are, and also the environmental benefits of collecting this data is. The next solution that we have is we're going to go through a digital transformation quite soon. We're trying to clean up our data, make sure our systems are talking to each other, just collecting the data to make sure that we can gain insight from it. And the final part of our solution is trying to integrate change management. So we really need to talk to our stakeholders, make sure that they understand why we're moving in this direction, why it's important that we all do this, and how it can really help the company in the future. So I would like to go to our case study, so a roadmap for safety. So like I said before, we're using this in our company at the moment. So we kind of follow this procedure. One step is we're trying to identify what metrics our safety team needs to make better decisions. We're also trying to centralize that data. We collect this data in many different platforms, many different software tools. We want to make sure that we identify what those platforms are. And we also want to align our safety goals with our overall company's goal. And then finally, we want to analyze the processes, train people on these different processes, and also monitor the processes. How we went about this. So we had about 10 different working sectors. So we believed it was very important to get everyone in the construction industry and the safety construction industry involved. So we met with project managers, risk coordinators, scheduling managers, vice presidents, engineers, anyone who was involved in safety. We really tried to understand where they were coming from, understand what their business requirements were, and try to find a solution that helped everyone instead of trying to impose our own solution on them. We also used the framework of a balanced scorecard to collect this data. I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then finally, we worked with some developers to determine how can we collect this data, where should we house this data, what type of warehouse should we house it in, what's the best way to analyze the data, and so forth. So like I mentioned before, our company used the balanced scorecard method to collect the KPIs for our safety team. And what a balanced scorecard is, it does two different things. So the first thing it does is tries to make sure that the department is collecting a balanced number of metrics. And it does that by breaking the KPIs into different perspectives. So we have our first perspective, which would be our financial perspectives. And our goal here was to answer the question, how do we appear to our stakeholders and insurers? Our second perspective was our employee or client perspective. And our goal here was, how do we appear to our employees or clients? And then our next perspective was our innovation or training perspective. Our goal here is, what should we do to learn, to grow, and to prosper in the organization? And our next perspective was our internal process perspective, which is which processes do we excel at? Again, this is just a framework, and we tweaked it a little bit to add a different perspective because our company needed this additional perspective. The other aspect of a balanced scorecard that's quite useful is that it tries to balance the number of leading and lagging indicators. We noticed in the beginning when we had our working sessions with the different groups that we were collecting a lot of lagging indicators. And we tried to challenge them to collect some leading indicators as well. And also to make sure that these indicators were in alignment with our company's overall strategic plan. So like I said before, we broke it into different perspectives. So for our safety group, we had our safe environment perspective. And our goal here was to answer this question: how can we ensure that all workers return home safely to their loved ones every day without an injury? And we had identified a number of KPIs that we can track to make sure that we are in alignment with this perspective. And we also tried to track what type of system we were using to collect it. If we were not using it, then I also work in IT, so I went to my IT manager and tried to develop a plan of how we can collect this data. Our next perspective was our process accountability. Our safety team and also our upper management determined that this was a perspective that we needed to focus on because, like we said before, it's quite difficult for people in our construction industry to change to different processes. And when we do implement this change, we need some way to ensure that people are accountable for it or following the change management plan. So our goal here was to answer this question. How can we increase individuals' accountability from their own work job site safety and the safety of their other team members around them? And again, we identified a number of KPIs that would help us align ourselves with this goal, identify what systems we're using to currently track it. If we were not, then we suggested systems that we could track it in. The next perspective we identified was our training and innovation perspective. And here our goal was to answer this question: how can we equip and empower our professional staff and field tradespeople with the safety tools and knowledge to compete successfully in their job? And again, we identified a number of KPIs that will help us align with that. And we talked with the safety team and also added more to this list. The next one was our scheduling improvement, scheduling and continuous improvement perspective. And here we tried to answer the question: how can we create an environment that supports continuous improvement and proactively respond to scheduling needs? Again, we identified a number of KPIs, one being, what are our safety milestones? How many safety milestones have we completed? How many days until the next safety milestone? Perhaps also, what is our corrective action? Are we closing them soon? Are we opening them appropriately? Are we also filling out our root cause analysis process for these issues as well? The next and our final, and perhaps the more important perspective, is our financial perspective. And here we wanted to answer the question: how can we implement accountability for our processes to reduce costs? In safety, there are a lot of costs associated with it, but they're not always evident to the people who are working on a team. So we thought it was a good idea to make this clear to everyone that we are tracking these, and these are important processes for us to adhere to because they actually have a financial and also a personal implication on the company. And so, for example, we wanted to track how many claims did we pay per project over time? What are the trends? How many accidents are we having? How many auto accidents are we having? And then, like I said before, we identified the number of systems that we are using to track this. If we're not tracking this, we haven't finished this project yet, we will go back and then try to identify what system we can use to track this information. So like I said before, one of the main issues that we came across is that getting our stakeholders to actually adapt to the change, to be willing to adhere to a different system that they were not used to was quite of a challenge. So what I had to do in my role was to really sit down with each stakeholder, like I said before, vice president for safety, other directors, and try to understand what do they really want to accomplish in their goal, in their job, and try to make sure that I didn't impose my own values of what I think they should do, but just try to get them to nail down what they wanted to do a little bit more and enhance it. So in our implementation scheme, what we're going to do is continue with our training, try to make sure that everyone agrees and has the buy-in into our system, and also continue to monitor our system and continue to do this training, because we realize, again, that change management is one of the more difficult aspects of it. Another thing that we have focused on is the data. We are collecting a lot of data, and like we said before, it's in different systems. We don't really understand our trends. We're trying to do that at the moment. And the next step is to analyze that data. As my role as a business analyst, my job to figure out how to make our processes safer, how to make our company safer, and how to make it also more profitable. I have a couple of examples of different dashboards that we're using. So we're using this one system called Procore, and Procore allows us to track all types of data in our company. And for example, this one, you can see where injuries often happen, if this happens on a particular part of the body, how often they happen, maybe with which trade partners they're happening. Perhaps also if they're happening on specific sites. We work in Silicon Valley, so we work with a lot of tech companies. Maybe certain project managers are more inclined to impose safety procedures or monitor safety procedures than other safety managers. And now that we have the system, we're more adept in tracking those metrics. So that was one example. We also have a root cause analysis example where if we have an inspection item, we can track to see what's happening. Maybe people are not wearing their eye protection when they go to the construction site. Maybe they're not using the scissor forklift very well. Perhaps they aren't wearing their masks when they come to the construction site. So we can track when it happened, who does it, how often it happens. And then this information is very important for our safety manager because he can then go into the safety teams and then develop a safety training procedure. Also maybe create corrective actions. Maybe there's a different reason as to why that's happening. But before, like I said before, we were collecting all this data, but we really couldn't see what was happening because we didn't have any real way to actually view it. I don't know if that's my time or if I spoke a little bit fast. I do tend to speak fast, but I am finished with that. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you so much, Raffael, for your presentation. That was very interesting and also practical because that was a real project and your practical experience, because that was also today a workshop and we wanted to have combination of know-how and do-how. Thank you, everybody. Now we are going to start our discussion. Maybe we have something like 11 minutes to finish the workshop before 16 o'clock German time. I would like to start a question, a general question from all respected speakers. You discuss about different topics: culture, economy, the role of language in economy, digital transformation, and how digital transformation can help us for artistic industry, activities industries, and all these cases. The question is, for example, when we say digital transformation and IoT can help us in different situations to grow or artistic economy, which kind of advantages and which kind of disadvantages we are going to face in this case? But this question just was example. This question is for all of the speakers. About your topic, which disadvantages and advantages you can see or you can forecast, and if there are disadvantages, which kind of solution you have for them? Please start. I would like to start with Mr. Wursten.
Well, it's an interesting question. What you know, Hamid, is that I developed 7 what I call mental images, meaning these are the combinations of the values, basic values that Mr. Hofstede found in his repeated research, empirical research, steering behavior. I made combinations, and I can distinguish 7 different approaches to economy, to well, problems like COVID and things like that. And if you look at the first one, that's very interesting. That is the Anglo-Saxon one. I call that the contest model. I can define the rules of the game of developing a better and improved economy. What you see is a twofold approach. And that is completely according to the rules of the game of that culture. First of all, they are asking the private sector to come up with solutions. The government is, well, more or less subsidizing, well, the private sector to come up with solutions. That's called the Hamiltonian approach. That's very, very interesting because that is completely different compared to, for instance, the rules of the game of the Scandinavian cultures and the Netherlands. That's also part of, well, the same system. I call that the network culture. And consensus seeking is in the core of that approach, the rules of the game. And what you see in terms of, well, the economy and in COVID and things like that is that, well, they try to identify all the stakeholders and try to develop consensus among all the stakeholders. So for instance, in terms of climate, we had so-called climate tables, meaning that all the societal stakeholders were, you know, identified. They were invited to come around the table, and they developed a system that was agreeable for everybody, for all the stakeholders. Well, that's completely 180 degrees different compared to, say, the American approach. And that is what I can identify worldwide, well, the system. So if I may give one last example. If you look at Germany, that's very interesting because, you know, you are based in Germany. You can see that in Germany, it's again the opposite of the Anglo-Saxon approach of the just do it, you know, the pragmatic approach. True is when it works. In Germany, and I give two examples, before people take action, they want to identify first the principium, the principles of what is happening, the principles of future behavior. And only after identifying the principles, people are willing to move. Meaning that, and that's my last example, that during the financial crisis, you know, 10 years ago, there was an article in The Economist, you know, this weekly magazine, and they were asking, where the hell is Angela? Why? Because, you know, the Lehman Brothers collapsed. The world was in shambles, and in some countries people took immediate action, but Angela Merkel was completely invisible. Why? She could not, like in the United States, you know, take immediate action because she wanted to identify first the principium, the principles of what is happening, what exactly is causing. And then after doing that, after a delay, well, she took action, and it was really, really effective. Well, comparing companies, and I can do that because I work with a lot of top Fortune companies in the world. For instance, Vodafone. If you look at Vodafone, headquarters is in the UK. Well, again, the Anglo-Saxon approach, the just do it approach. If you compare that with Germany, you know, and Germany is quite big in terms of Vodafone. Well, the collapse, I mean, the difficulties, the frictions were all the time between first taking time to identify the principles before taking action, and the just do it approach from the Anglo-Saxons. That is my answer. I mean, there are 7 of these approaches, and we have to identify that to be really effective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wursten, because of your proper answer. Now I would like to ask the same question, Dr. Hartijasti, because as she introduced herself, she's working in the field of marketing, business, economy in Indonesia, and also she has some practical background and experiences. That's why I wanted to know and ask her disadvantages and advantages, and if there are disadvantages, which kind of solution you can offer.
Okay, thank you. So since I am proposing about how to create a sustainable and healthy workplace using your model, the 7 pillars of sustainability model, of course, is a bit complex now. Before it's even though it's 3, it's still complex, right? And 7, of course, is more complex. We know that in Asia, since if we are not very strict with the rules and regulation, then we will not follow. So it depends on the leader. Sometimes even the leader is already showing the way, but if they feel that the what for me it's not so strong, so they won't do it. Yeah. Therefore, it should have a very attractive reward system. Yeah, what will they get? Yeah, for doing the right things, yeah, especially for this having this sustainable and healthy workplace. And then for the if we are asking them to do it in a bigger group, it's also another challenge. So that's why it's better to do it in a, you know, to start it, of course, in a company. So when the company is, if a company has succeeded, then it can it can be the role model for the other company to be the sustainable and healthy workplace. Because Indonesia, usually we will observe somebody else first before we do it. You do it first, then I follow, something like that. That's why it has to be or just, if you have the commitment, then do it, and then show it to the world, then let everybody copy the way you do it.
Thank you for your feedback, Dr. Hartijasti. If Professor Assante is there, I would like to ask the same question. I'm not sure he is there. If not, we go to ask the same question from Mr. Raffael Sheffield.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Professor Assante.
I discussed about artistic industries. What are advantages and disadvantages of digital transformation? In terms of advantages, is quite easy. Is the possibility to offer new services, to create new business, to create new opportunities for the industries and for the customer themselves. 10 years ago, a museum was just a museum. Now, with the digital technologies, you can offer several kinds of different experiences to the users. So it's new opportunities, living opportunities for the customer, but new services to be offered for the owner, the provider of services. In terms of disadvantages, is more complicated. For sure, there is an issue related to the gap of competencies. I mean, the new players that should be involved in order to offer these new kind of services are generally ICT professional engineers, programmers, that are very far from the world of industrial design, industrial industries. So there is a big gap, and it's a gap that cannot be covered with training. I mean, if you take a painter, you cannot train it to be a programmer. So we are mixing two worlds with different competencies. And it may be surprising for a painter to compete with a software that is going to design an artificial painting, even if the painting realized with the AI software has a value higher than several paintings from any world. So it's a strange situation. So in terms of competencies and skills, there will be a complex evolution.
Thank you, Professor Assante, for your feedback. If Mrs. Halchenko is there, I want to ask the same question. If not, we can ask Mr. Sheffield.
Yes, I'm here. Could you repeat the question, please?
You know, we discussed about the cultural diplomacy, and most of you about the artistic or cultural activities with economic approach. And the question is, for example, you talk about the role of languages in the growing economy. Which kind of advantages and disadvantages we have? And if there are some disadvantages, which kind of solution you can offer? Because you said also you had some experience in this case.
Yeah, actually, if we look at the amount of speakers, there are more Chinese speakers than English speakers. But why English is the lingua franca, not Chinese? For Chinese people, it's much easier now to learn English or to learn Russian, for example. The majority of Chinese know Russian these days, which is very interesting. So my point is that it's not about the amount of people speaking the particular language. It's about the economy, which actually dictates which language is a lingua franca. That's it. I mean, there is no point talking about advantages and disadvantages of English being a lingua franca, but it's just the reality, the new normal that we have to accept. And in my humble opinion, English will continue being the lingua franca for definitely 50 years, for the next 50 years. And some people are talking about Chinese language becoming a lingua franca, but I strongly disagree, since for Chinese people, it's not difficult to master even Russian, which is a very complex language to master for Chinese speakers especially. So yeah, that's it actually.
Thank you for your feedback, but I just want to add one point because of the 7 pillars of sustainability model. One point is politics, and this is, as I said, is about how politicians can support the regulation and law to support these economic activities. In this regard, I would like to say maybe because of this political reason, the English language is the international language today. Maybe otherwise, for example, Spanish was international language. Maybe Mr. Wursten can correct it if it is not right. Mr. Wursten?
Well, I'd like to add one more thing.
Yeah.
I was breaking, the ice for understanding each other and empathy. And in terms of language, even if we are fluent, we have to understand the culture behind words. I have a few examples. In the 90s, I was invited by the vice president of Mr. Yeltsin in Russia to have a speech for, the Supreme Soviet at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about, the new economy, glasnost and perestroika. And I was using the word, strategy. And I saw that the people in the audience were freezing. Later, they told me that the word strategy in that time in Russia was only used in terms of warfare, in the context of warfare. First example. Second example is, we were talking about, our Raffael Sheffield was talking about accountability. Well, you have to understand that accountability is only an issue in the Anglo-Saxon countries. We might use that word in Indonesia or in the Netherlands, but accountability is completely different, because accountability in the United States means there is a measure, you have agreed before that about the target, and then you get the leadership, and if you are not reaching that target, you are fired or demoted and so on. That is called accountability. I mean, you are even taken to court now and then. That's completely different in other cultures outside the Anglo-Saxon world. Last example, the word leadership. We are using the word leadership. Well, I can tell you, two examples. I have a friend, he is from Portugal, and I introduced him at the IMF. I was, as you know, perhaps the consultant of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund in Washington. He was introduced there, and they needed the Portuguese. And he took his family and he sent his son to kindergarten in Washington. And he was invited for a parental meeting, and the teachers were asking, the parents, what do you expect, from your child? And my friend from Portugal was completely amazed, because most of the parents were saying, I think my kid is having leadership qualities, and I like to emphasize on the leadership qualities. My friend said, I had the tendency to take the first plane back to Portugal, talking about leadership. If you're talking about 4 years old, come on. And my second example is, there was a cabinet minister in my country, he was even from the right wing, I mean, what I call the right wing. And he said in a speech for parliament, the moment I hear the word leadership, I hear boots marching in the streets, meaning for most Dutch and Scandinavians, leadership is really have a negative connotation instead of a positive connotation. So what I recommend is, please understand, even if you are sharing the language, please understand the connotation. Please understand the cultural background of these words.
Thank you, Mr. Wursten, for your feedback. Before we are going to ask the same question from Raffael, I would like to say Liebe Alexandra, guten Appetit for your delicious tea. That looks like very delicious. Okay, Raffael, you can start.
I guess as far as the digital transformation advantages in the construction industry are huge. We can use them, we can use AR, VR, we can use drones, we have a financial aspect, we can increase costs or reduce costs, but increase the profit, reduce construction time, reduce construction issues, qualities. The disadvantages of using this is that in my experience, there seems to be maybe a disconnect with the upper management and our field management. Our upper management really understands the need for data, but our field engineers are not quite there yet. And I kind of think it's because in the US, because maybe we are moving towards this digital wave, that many people feel as if they're being pushed out of their jobs. And they perhaps won't be able to work in the construction industry anymore unless they learn some tech or have some tech skills. And that's a huge barrier to maybe overcome when it comes to trying to implement these procedures.
Okay, thank you, Raffael, for your feedback. Now, I would like to say again, thank you, everybody, because of your valuable speeches and because of your presence here today. And then we understand the role of culture is so important. I just want to give you an example and then ask Dr. Mohammadi to finish the session. When I was young, I was working in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and then that was one institution in this ministry. They wanted to appoint me as deputy of this institution, and they told me, you know, the other position, the other people they wanted to have, that's why we wanted to appoint you as deputy for cultural affairs. And I said, why culture? There are so many good positions, technique, for example, HR and etc. Why you want to give me the culture? Because nobody wanted to have culture. That's that time, you know, I thought culture is something so small and not important in the organization. That's why I didn't want to get the position. But after I moved to Denmark, in Denmark, my activities was about strategic planning and sustainability. And then I read a sentence from Peter Drucker, who said, culture can eat a strategy as breakfast. And then I understood, oh, culture is so huge, because until now I thought strategy is very important. As Mr. Wursten said, in Soviet Union, when they talk about the word strategy, they think about warfare. But in that time I said strategy is very important because I'm doing research in this regard. I publish articles, books, but after that I saw this important point for me is just breakfast for a culture. That's why today we can see culture is really foundation, is infrastructure for economy, for all activities we want to do. We cannot get, we cannot achieve sustainability without focusing on cultural infrastructure. And that's why we are going to establish this kind of workshop, conferences, webinars to go to more detailed information and also share our knowledge, know-how, do-how together. Thank you so much, everybody. Now I would like to ask Dr. Mohammadi to finish the workshop. Thank you. Your microphone is off, Dr. Mohammadi. Your microphone is off, Dr. Mohammadi.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Dr. Mohammadian. I have nothing to add speeches, and really the speeches was very fruitful for me, and I got a lot of information, so it is very good. And at least it is a starting for this kind of conversation, kind of discussion regarding this important issue. As you mentioned, culture really is has a lot of effect on all aspects of the human being and society, economic, and everything. So thank you again. Thank all respected speakers and professors, experts that they have taken part in this webinar. And I hope that in next webinars also we will see them and we will have them in the future. So thank you for all.
Thank you so much, everybody. I would like to ask you again to please send me your presentation file about your speech today because of the workshop ebook we want to publish. And also I'm going to again tell you happy Christmas holidays and happy New Year. And I wish you so much health at first and then success and wealth.
Yeah, happy Christmas to all.
Happy holidays.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.